The Garden Dice Captain. Sarah Chen had been flying supply runs to the outer colonies for 12 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The transport ship Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Harvest system, and immediately something felt wrong. The usual chatter of colony traffic control was silent. No merchant ships moved between the planets. Even the automated beacon signals had stopped broadcasting. Sarah's co-pilot, Lieutenant Dave Morrison, checked his instruments twice before speaking. The readings showed nothing. No radio signals, no heat signatures from the major cities, no signs of the 2 million people who called New Harvest home. The agricultural colony that had fed 12 worlds for the past 15 years had simply vanished from the universe. The Wanderer approached the main planet slowly. Sarah had visited New Harvest dozens of times, bringing supplies to the farming communities and carrying their crops back to the inner worlds. She knew every settlement, every face at the spaceport. Dr. Marcus Webb, the colonial administrator, always met her personally to discuss the shipping schedules. His wife Emma ran the children's school. Their daughter Katie was learning to fly, and always asked Sarah about life among the stars. As they entered the atmosphere, the scope of the disaster became clear. The capital city of Green Valley, home to 500,000 people, was gone. Not destroyed in the way wars usually destroyed cities, with rubble and debris marking where buildings once stood. It was simply absent, as if someone had carefully erased it from existence. The ground was smooth and empty, covered with a thin layer of strange crystalline dust that glittered in the sunlight. Sarah landed the Wanderer at what had been the main spaceport. The landing pad was intact, but the terminal building had vanished like everything else. She and Dave suited up and stepped outside, their boots crunching on the crystal dust. The air was breathable but wrong somehow, too clean and empty of the sounds that should fill a living world. They found the first clue 3 kilometers from the landing site, an emergency shelter, one of the reinforced bunkers that every colony built for natural disasters, had survived whatever happened here. Inside, they discovered Dr. Marcus Webb's final message. He had recorded it on a portable device, his hands shaking as he spoke to the camera. The recording began with Marcus looking directly into the lens, his usually calm face marked by terror and exhaustion. Behind him they could hear explosions and screaming. Marcus spoke quickly as if he knew his time was running out. "My name is Dr. Marcus Webb, Colonial Administrator of New Harvest. If you're watching this, then I'm probably dead, and so is everyone else on this world. 3 days ago, ships appeared in our system. We tried to communicate, but they didn't respond to any of our signals. They just began their work." Marcus paused, looking over his shoulder at sounds Sarah couldn't identify through the recording. When he turned back, tears were running down his face. "They're not destroying us the way we understand destruction. Their weapons don't explode things or burn them. They just make them disappear. People, buildings, entire cities just fade away like they were never there. The only thing left behind is this silver dust. We tried to evacuate, but their ships are everywhere. They're hunting down every transport, every escape pod." The recording shook as another explosion echoed through the bunker. Marcus steadied the camera and continued speaking. "Listen carefully to whoever finds this. These aliens, they're not interested in conquest or resources. They're erasing us. Completely. Like they want to remove every trace that humans were ever here. They haven't tried to communicate or negotiate. This isn't war as we understand it. This is extermination." Marcus held up a small device that Sarah didn't recognize. It was clearly alien technology, sleek and metallic with strange symbols etched into its surface. "I managed to recover this from one of their scout ships that crashed near the northern settlements. Our engineers had just enough time to analyze it before the northern settlements disappeared. The technology is beyond anything we have, but it's not impossible to understand. If humanity wants to survive, you'll need to study this. You'll need to learn from it." The recording went quiet, except for the sound of Marcus breathing heavily. Then his voice returned, quieter but more determined. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them that New Harvest fought to the end. Tell them that we died as humans, not as subjects of an alien empire. And tell them..." Marcus looked directly into the camera, his eyes burning with intensity. Tell them that if these creatures think humans will simply disappear quietly, they've made a terrible mistake. We've been peaceful because we chose to be, not because we had to be. The recording ended with Marcus looking up sharply at something outside the bunker, his face going pale. The image cut to static and then to nothing. Sarah and Dave sat in the empty bunker for a long time after the recording ended, holding the alien device and trying to process what they had witnessed. 2 million people, an entire thriving world, erased from existence in 3 days. Sarah thought about Katie Webb, who would never learn to fly among the stars. She thought about the farmers who had worked so hard to turn New Harvest into a garden world. All of them gone, not even graves left behind to mark their existence. The return journey to Earth felt like the longest flight of Sarah's life. The Wanderer carried the only evidence that New Harvest had ever existed, Marcus Webb's final message in the alien device. As they traveled through hyperspace, Sarah made her own recording, adding her testimony to Marcus's warning. She described the empty cities, the crystal dust, and the terrible silence of a world where millions had lived just days before. When they reached Earth orbit, military ships were already waiting for them. Word of New Harvest's silence had reached the Sol system through automated trading reports that showed missed delivery schedules. Admiral Thomas Kane, the head of Earth's small defense fleet, came aboard the Wanderer personally to review the evidence. Kane was a career military officer who had spent most of his life preparing for threats that never came. Humanity had expanded to 43 worlds over the past century without encountering hostile alien life. Their ships were built for exploration and commerce, not war. The largest military vessels in the human fleet were patrol craft designed to handle pirates and smugglers. After watching Marcus Webb's recording, Kane sat silently for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. Captain Chen, Dr. Webb mentioned that their engineers analyzed the alien technology. Did you find any of their research? Sarah handed him a datapad they had recovered from the ruins of the Colonial Science Center. Kane studied the information carefully, his expression growing more grim with each page. According to this analysis, the aliens use some kind of matter conversion technology. They don't destroy things in the traditional sense. They break down matter at the molecular level and convert it into energy for their ships. Entire cities become fuel for their fleet. Dave Morrison, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. Admiral, if they can do that to planets, how are we supposed to fight them? Kane looked up from the datapad, and for the first time since Sarah had known him, the Admiral smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Lieutenant Morrison, these aliens, made the same mistake that every bully in history has made. They assumed that because we were peaceful, we were weak. They're about to learn the difference. Within hours, emergency sessions were called in every government on Earth and every colony. World. The evidence from New Harvest was transmitted to every human settlement, along with Sarah's testimony and the alien technology samples. The reaction was swift and unanimous. President Elena Vasquez addressed the species from the steps of the Global Council building in Geneva. Behind her, the flags of all 43 human worlds flew at half-staff for the people of New Harvest. My fellow humans, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of human space. We have learned that we are not alone in the universe. We have also learned that our neighbors do not value human life. The colony of New Harvest, home to 2 million of our brothers and sisters, has been destroyed by aliens who see us as nothing, more than fuel for their ships. The president paused, looking directly into the cameras that would carry her words to every human world. For over a century, humanity has chosen the path of peace. We have explored the stars not as conquerors but as gardeners, planting seeds of human civilization on distant worlds. We have built our ships for commerce and exploration, not for war. We have done this because we believed that peace was stronger than violence, that cooperation was better than conflict. President Vasquez's voice grew stronger, filled with a determination that would be remembered for generations. We were right to choose peace, but peace is not surrender, and it is not weakness. Peace is a choice that must be defended. Today, I am authorizing the largest military mobilization in human history. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we possess will be turned to one purpose, ensuring that what happened to New Harvest never happens again. The transformation began immediately. On Earth, automobile factories started producing armor plating. Electronics manufacturers shifted to building targeting systems and communication arrays. The massive civilian shipyards that had built colony ships and cargo haulers were retooled for military production. Engineer Rosa Martinez, who had designed the largest passenger liners in human space, found herself leading teams that were building something very different. Rosa stood in the main assembly bay of the Luna shipyards, watching her newest creation take shape. The ship was nothing like the elegant passenger vessel she had designed for peaceful exploration. It was angular and aggressive, covered in weapon mounts and armor plating, but it was also beautiful in its own way, representing the focused will of an entire species. "How many ships like this can we build?" asked Admiral Kane, joining her on the observation deck. Rosa checked her calculations on a tablet. The numbers were staggering, even to her. "If we convert every major shipyard in human space and run them at maximum capacity, we can produce about 4,000 ships per month. Heavy cruisers like this one, along with fighters, destroyers, and support vessels." Kane nodded, making notes of his own. "And how long until we have a fleet that can challenge these aliens?" 6 months, Rosa replied without hesitation. "Give me 6 months and I'll give you a fleet that will make the aliens regret they ever heard of humanity." The Admiral looked out at the construction sites that now covered the space around Luna. Thousands of workers labored around the clock, building instruments of war that would have been unimaginable before New Harvest. In the distance, similar scenes were playing out around Mars, Titan, and the asteroid mining colonies. Humanity was transforming itself, and the aliens had no idea what was coming. As Rosa and Kane watched, the first completed warship powered up its engines for testing. The ship was named New Harvest Remembers, and painted on its hull were the names of every person who had died in the colony. It was the first of many. Each ship that rolled out of the human shipyards carried the memory of the lost world, and the promise that their deaths would not be forgotten. The aliens had wanted to show humanity its place in the universe. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in the human spirit for too long. The gardeners were putting down their tools and picking up swords, and the stars themselves would tremble before the fury of a species that had finally decided to show its teeth. The Steel. Storm rises 6 months after New Harvest died. The space around Earth looked like something from a nightmare or a dream. Admiral Thomas Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution and watched as the largest fleet in human history prepared for departure. 700,000 warships filled the void between planets, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor, and bristling with weapons that had never existed before the aliens made their fatal mistake. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Engineer Rosa Martinez and her teams had worked around the clock to design vessels that could fight and win against technology more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. They had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. The human fleet was not just larger than the alien forces, it was better. Fleet Commander Lisa Park walked onto the bridge, carrying the final intelligence reports from the reconnaissance missions. For the past 3 months, small groups of human ships had been hunting alien scouts throughout the frontier regions. What they had learned was both encouraging and terrifying. "Admiral," Lisa said, handing him the datapad, "the scout missions have confirmed our intelligence estimates. The aliens have approximately 50,000 ships in their main fleet, with another 20,000 scattered across their occupied territories." Kane studied the reports carefully. The numbers were in humanity's favor, but the aliens had experience and technology that humans were still learning to counter. "What about their capabilities?" Kane asked. Lisa activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of alien vessels. The ships were sleek and organic-looking, more grown than built. They moved through space like living creatures, and their weapons could erase matter from existence. "Dr. Alan Foster's team has made significant breakthroughs," Lisa continued. "The alien technology we recovered from New Harvest led us to develop countermeasures. Our new shields can deflect their matter conversion weapons, And our targeting systems can lock onto their ships even when they try to phase shift. Kane nodded with satisfaction. Dr. Foster had been humanity's leading physicist before the war began. Now he was their secret weapon, a man who understood alien science better than the aliens themselves. And our own weapons? Kane asked. Lisa's expression became grim and determined. Admiral, our new plasma cannons can penetrate their defenses and our quantum torpedoes can track their ships through hyperspace. But the real advantage we have is something they'll never expect. Which is, we learned from them, but they haven't learned from us. They still think we're the same peaceful species they encountered at New Harvest. They have no idea that we've been preparing for war. Kane walked to the viewport and looked out at the assembled fleet. Each ship represented months of focused effort, the combined will of 43 worlds united in purpose. The vessels were organized into battle groups, each one capable of destroying entire alien fleets. The flagship groups were commanded by officers who had studied every available piece of intelligence about alien tactics and weaknesses. Lieutenant James Rodriguez was one of those officers, leading a squadron of the new fighter craft that had been designed specifically for this war. James had been a civilian pilot before New Harvest, flying cargo runs between the inner worlds. Now he commanded 50 of the most advanced combat spacecraft ever built by human hands. Squadron leaders, report status, James said into his communications. Array. The responses came back quickly and professionally. 50 pilots, all former civilians who had volunteered for military service after learning about New Harvest. They had trained together for 6 months, learning to fight as a unit against enemies they had never seen but already hated. All fighters ready, Commander Rodriguez, came the voice of his wingman, pilot Sarah Kim. Weapons armed, shields at maximum, and ready to show these aliens what humans can do. James smiled despite the seriousness of the moment. The fighters were small compared to the massive battleships around them, but they were faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had. They would be the first to engage the enemy, the tip of the spear that humanity was about to throw across the galaxy. Admiral Kane opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. His voice would be heard on 700,000 ships, reaching nearly 5 million human beings who were about to embark on the greatest military operation in the species' history. Attention all ships and all personnel, Kane began. Today we depart Earth not as explorers or merchants, but as the sword and shield of humanity. 6 months ago, the aliens who call themselves the Veil Collective destroyed our colony at New Harvest. They killed 2 million innocent people not in battle but in cold blood. They erased them from existence because they believed humans were weak and helpless. Kane paused, letting his words sink in across the fleet. They were wrong. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We have spent 6 months building the most powerful military force in known history, and now we're going to use it. Our mission is simple. Find every Veil Collective ship, base, and world and show them the same mercy they showed to New Harvest. The communication channel filled with the sound of cheering from hundreds of thousands of crew members. Kane waited for quiet before continuing. Each ship in this fleet carries the names of those who died at New Harvest. We fight not for conquest or revenge, but for justice. We fight to ensure that no other human world suffers the fate of our lost colony. We fight because we are human, and humans protect their own. Kane gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. All ships engage hyperspace drives. Destination, Veil Collective territory. Let's go remind the universe that humanity has teeth. The departure was unlike anything ever seen before. 700,000 ships engaged their hyperspace drives simultaneously, creating a cascade of energy that could be detected from neighboring star systems. The human fleet didn't just leave Earth, it announced its presence to the entire galaxy. First alien ships they encountered never had a chance to send a warning. Commander Rodriguez and his fighter squadron detected a Veil Collective patrol group in the Kepler system. 3 ships that were probably scouting for more human colonies to destroy. The aliens saw the human fighters approaching and must have thought they were facing another group of helpless civilians like those at New Harvest. The alien ships opened fire with their matter conversion weapons, the same technology that had erased entire cities. The beams struck the human fighters and were absorbed harmlessly by their new shield systems. James Rodriguez felt a surge of fierce satisfaction as he realized the aliens were confused and possibly frightened. "All fighters, engage at will," James ordered. "Show them what 6 months of preparation can accomplish." The human fighters attacked like a swarm of angry insects, their plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes overwhelming the alien defenses. The Vale Collective ships, which had seemed so powerful at New Harvest, were destroyed in less than 2 minutes. None of them escaped to warn their fleet. Similar encounters were happening throughout Vale Collective space as the human fleet spread out to begin its systematic hunt. Admiral Kane had divided the 700,000 ships into smaller battle groups, each one larger than the entire alien fleet. They moved through alien territory like a plague of metal locusts, destroying everything they found. Dr. Alan Foster was aboard one of the science vessels, studying captured Vale Collective technology and learning more about the enemy with each engagement. What he discovered was both encouraging and deeply disturbing. "Admiral," Foster reported during a secure communication, "I've been analyzing the aliens' computers and communication systems. The Vale Collective has destroyed at least 30 different species over the past 1,000 years. They're not just conquerors, they're exterminators. They find intelligent life and erase it completely, then move on to the next target." Kane felt his anger growing as he listened to the report. "How many worlds, Doctor?" "Hundreds, Admiral, maybe thousands. The Vale Collective doesn't just destroy civilizations, they eliminate all evidence that those species ever existed. They're trying to be the only intelligent life in the galaxy." "Not anymore," Kane said grimly. "What else have you learned?" Foster's voice became excited as he described his latest discoveries. "Their technology is advanced, but it's also stagnant. They haven't innovated in centuries because they've never needed to. Every species they encountered was too primitive to fight back effectively. They relied on overwhelming force and terror to win their wars. And now? Now they're facing an enemy that learned from their technology and improved on it, Admiral. Our weapons are actually superior to theirs in several key areas. We're faster, more maneuverable, and our targeting systems are more accurate. The only advantage they had was experience, and we're gaining that quickly." As if to prove Foster's point, reports started coming in from across the fleet. Human battle groups were encountering larger Vale Collective forces and winning decisively. The aliens were pulling back toward their core systems, but they were being pursued relentlessly by human ships that were faster and more determined than anything they had ever faced. Fleet Commander Lisa Park was leading the largest human battle group, consisting of 100,000 ships, toward what intelligence suggested was a major Vale Collective base. When they arrived, they found something that made even the hardened military officers pause in shock. The base was built around the remains of a destroyed world. The planet had been completely stripped of matter, leaving only a hollow shell that served as a foundation for the alien installation. According to the data they recovered, the world had once been home to a species called the Harmonic Singers, beings who had achieved spaceflight just 50 years before the Vale Collective found them. Lisa looked at the scans of the hollow world and felt her resolve harden even further. The Vale Collective hadn't just destroyed the Harmonic Singers. They had turned their entire planet into raw material for their war machine. It was the same fate that had been intended for New Harvest and every other human world. "All ships. Maximum firepower," Lisa ordered. "I want this base erased from existence." The human fleet opened fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and the new disintegrator beams that Dr. Foster had developed from captured alien technology. The Vale Collective base, which had taken centuries to build, was destroyed in less than an hour. As they prepared to leave the system, Lisa's communication officer reported something unexpected. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's not from the Vale Collective." The message was weak and distorted, coming from somewhere deeper in the galaxy. When they cleaned up the signal, they heard something that gave them hope for the first time since New Harvest. "This is Council of Surviving Species. If anyone can hear this, the Vale Collective has been retreating. Their ships are fleeing toward core worlds, whoever you are. Thank you." Lisa smiled as she realized what was happening. The human fleet wasn't just defeating the Veil Collective, they were liberating the galaxy. Species that had been hiding from the aliens for centuries were beginning to emerge, emboldened by humanity's success. Admiral Kane received similar reports from across the fleet. The Veil Collective was in full retreat, abandoning their forward bases and pulling back to defend their homeworld. But they were being pursued by 700,000 human ships that had no intention of letting them escape justice. The final phase of the war was about to begin, and Kane knew that when it was over, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had entered the cosmic stage not as peaceful explorers, but as the species that had ended a 1,000-year reign of terror. The stars themselves seemed to grow darker as the human fleet advanced, not because the light was fading, but because the space between worlds was filled with so many ships that they blocked out the distant suns. The Veil Collective had awakened something terrible and beautiful in the human spirit, and now they would face the consequences of their choice. New Harvest would be remembered not as humanity's greatest loss, but as the spark that ignited the fire that would burn across the galaxy until every last alien ship was destroyed and every species they had terrorized was free to live among the stars once again.